afternoon all, and welcome to the Reading Comprehension Workshop. It's tips and tricks to being a better reader. I'm Lucy Montez, and I'm your presenter. I want to start out with a quick question to all of you. How much of the reading that you do you think you do from a book? And how much of the reading that you do you think you do online? So just give me an estimate in percentages. Is it 50-50, 60-40, 30-70? You can type it in the chat. So Teresita books about 75%, online reading about 25%. This presentation is going to 90 books. 90 online, 10% books. Johnny, 20 online. I'm sorry, 80 online, 20% books. Kevy, 80 online, 20% books. Okay, Ariane, mostly online. 60 books, 40 online. Okay, so there's a wide range. You'll see that this presentation is probably going to focus more on reading comprehension from books. There is a recent study that says that our memory of what we read is much better when we read long text from a book. And online reading is good for shorter texts, but apparently our memory of them is not quite as good. I'm Lucy Montez. I'm a retired FBI translator. I was with the FBI for 31 years. I translated primarily for court prosecutions. I have a master's in education. I'm a lifelong reader, and I also have some professional experience as a writer and an editor. So let's get down to the nitty-gritty and let's start with this. If you want to improve your reading comprehension, you need to schedule your reading. You need to make it a habit. So do you find that you read better in the evenings, after the end of the day? Do you prefer to get some reading in the afternoon in between classes or jobs? Or do you prefer to read in the morning when you're fresh, when you just get out of bed? You may find that you focus better after exercise. Exercise will increase the oxygen in your blood into your brain. You may find that you focus better after exercise. Or maybe you need a nap just to rest from the day and you wake up more focused if you have a nap first. Maybe you need a snack, you need to eat to concentrate. It's very hard to concentrate on an empty stomach. So you want to schedule your reading and make it a regular part of your day. And try to pick that time of day when it's easiest for you to focus. Try to avoid distractions and multitasking. That means mute your phone, shut off Facebook, and try not to do more than one thing at a time. I know young people like to think that they can multitask, but studies show us that when we multitask, our memory for the different things that we're doing is not as good. Okay, so whatever it is you're doing, your brain will not process it completely into your memory or as effectively if you're distracted by other tasks. If you like to listen to a little background music while you're studying, that's okay, but don't listen to any music with words, with lyrics. Because again, any other type of language that you're hearing while you're reading will distract from your focus. You probably want to schedule some breaks, say every 30 minutes or so, maybe less. Whenever you find your mind is wandering or you lose your focus, take a break, take 5 minutes, take 10 minutes. Get on Facebook for a minute, call your mom. Chat with a friend. You don't want to read hour upon hour upon hour. You will not absorb it and you'll come to hate it. So take a break if you need it. And then reading, like anything else, requires practice. If you want to be a great athlete, you got to practice. If you want to be a great dancer, you have to practice. If you want to be a musician, you have to practice. So if you want to improve your reading, practice your reading and make it a regular part of your day. So I want to tell you a little bit about language skills and how reading is a part of this. There are 4 language skills that we acquire as people: listening, speaking, reading, and writing. And you all know that when we're babies and toddlers, we learn to listen to a language and understand it without being taught how to do it. That's a natural function of the human mind. We learn language as infants, and we learn to speak it correctly. Okay, we don't have to be taught how to understand. The second language skill that we acquire is the ability to speak. And this, of course, is something we also do as infants and toddlers. Nobody has to teach us how to speak. You know, our moms, our parents may help us, but speaking is something we learn to do naturally. People acquire spoken language without any effort, their native language. The third language skill that we acquire is the ability to read. This has to be taught. We learn this when we get to school with varying success. Because it's not a natural language skill like listening and understanding or speaking, it can be difficult. Okay, it's not going to be easy like talking or hearing people. It's taught, it's not a natural language skill. We learn it in school. What does that mean? That means you can improve upon it with practice and with the different tactics. The final language skill that we acquire is writing. Because it's a taught skill, it's not a natural skill, it can also be difficult. But again, it improves with practice and regular use. Now, the first language skill is listening. The second language skill is speaking. Speaking is a skill that builds upon the first skill, which is listening. Reading is a skill which is based on the previous two skills, the first two skills, understanding and speaking. And then writing is a language skill that is based on the first three, understanding, speaking, and reading. So you see they progress in difficulty, and each one is built upon the foundation of the previous. So it's a progression of learning of language. Another thing I wanted to mention are the senses. The reason I'm bringing this up is that when, in the case of memory, some of you, I'm sure all of you, have a very vivid memory of a time or a place or a person which is triggered by a smell. It could be a perfume, it could be the smell of a place, it could be landing at the airport when you go home. We acquire some very, very powerful memories associated with smell. Smell is one of the senses, one of the five senses. Some of the other five senses, of course, are seeing with the eyes, hearing with the ears, touching with the hands. So, in fact, memory is stored not in just one part of the brain, but in various parts of the brain. And those memories can be attached to the different senses. So when a memory is attached to different senses, it anchors more, it is processed more completely, and memory works more effectively when you can anchor those memories to one of the five senses. So we're going to see how we can utilize some of the five senses in order to improve memory of reading. Are there any questions so far? Cafecito. Okay, this is a good point. I want to bring up the point of the smell. Yes, the smell of coffee. Yes, that's a very powerful memory. I also want to mention the caffeine. So some kids like to drink coffee all night and do an all-nighter and read and get ready for an exam. Studies have shown that staying up all night and cramming is not good for memory. What's actually better for your memory is a good night's sleep. So a good night's sleep is actually very important to memory. It allows the brain to process and store what you've read and what you've learned. So try to skip the all-nighters and don't go overboard on the coffee. Although caffeine can enhance physical and mental performance, and I did have a cup of coffee before I got online, don't go overboard with the caffeine. You don't want to be dependent on caffeine in order to think or function. That's never good. All right, so another technique for improving reading comprehension and memory of what you read is write things down. I know that we do a lot of what we do in life now online, but if you're reading a book for a class, pick up a pen, get a notepad, and write down by hand the main points or the general ideas of what you're reading. Here you're utilizing the sense of touch and visualization because you're going to write with your hand and you're going to see it with your eyes And that's 2 more ways to anchor the memory of what you've read. There's a technique called read and recall. You can read a paragraph, write a note. Read a paragraph and write a note. Some people like to write in the margins of the book. This is also very helpful. Writing in the margins of the book, then you can go right back to the book and look at your notes. That helps. Some people like to underline with a highlighter or a pen. This is also very helpful in looking for the main points. Don't go overboard, because then you'll have a book full of yellow highlight and nothing will really stand out. So write things down when you read them. Where to find the main ideas. The trick to finding the main ideas in what you're reading is pretty straightforward. Look at the table of contents if you're opening up a book. That'll give you the hint on what you're going to read about. Look at the chapters of the titles. That will tell you what each chapter is going to be about. And this may sound very simplistic, but what it does is it prepares you for the information that you're going to process, which prepares your brain to process the information you're going to read, because you can anticipate and you can see what it is you're going to read. Look for the section headings. Look for the first paragraph, the first sentence of each paragraph. That will often tell you the main idea. At other times it may not. But again, you can read one paragraph at a time. Rather than reading the whole thing, you can read one paragraph at a time. Figure out what the main point is. Highlight it or write it down. And again, underlining and highlighting is helpful. All right, unfamiliar words, the words we don't understand. This can happen quite often, or it can happen not at all. English may not be your first language. You may have doubts about some words. You may want to check a dictionary and see what the translation is to make sure you've understood the word. You want to check all unfamiliar words. You don't want to miss any meaning or definitions, and you want to be sure you use words correctly in school. So how to figure out, and this happens to English speakers all the time. We come across words, we don't know what they mean. So how do you figure out what a word means that's unfamiliar to you? There are a lot of different ways, and I'm going to do that in the next slide. I suggest keeping a glossary. If you're coming across a lot of words that you don't understand, or even if you're not coming across a lot of words, keep a glossary. A glossary is like a very short dictionary. You can use a notepad or a notebook, and you can start with each word that you're unfamiliar with. Find out what it means, check the dictionary meaning, write it down. And these are words you can review every day or once a week so that they become a part of your regular vocabulary and you're able to use them. You don't want to use words incorrectly when you write. You don't want to guess what a word means. Eventually, you'll acquire a jargon. Now, a jargon is a special vocabulary typical to a profession or a career. Depending on what your career is and your major, you're going to start coming across certain words on a regular basis. And you need to know what they mean. You want to acquire these for your professional vocabulary. We call that a jargon. So keep a list of those words that you learn and review them periodically. A quick way to look up the definition of word, of course, is on Google. That's very fast. You can use a smartphone for that. If you want something a little more detailed with synonyms or antonyms, or you need to translate in order to check the meaning, I use Collins Online Dictionary. It's excellent. It's excellent. So be sure you know what all the words mean. Now, before you look up a word in the dictionary, there are many times that we can figure out what a word means by looking at the context. Context, of course, is everything around the word, the sentence surrounding the word. That will often give you clues as to what the meaning is. For instance, synonyms. English has a lot of synonyms. English is a combination of Old English and Latin. 70% of our vocabulary comes from Latin. So that's why English has so many words. It has over 300,000. A synonym is a word that has almost the same meaning as the word as the other word. So for instance, I hate or detest eating green peas. Detest tells you that it means almost the same thing as hate. Another way to figure out the definition of a word. The word is defined in the sentence or a sentence nearby. This is another place to look for clues. The boy was unresponsive when he didn't answer any of the questions. So unresponsive, he didn't answer any of the questions. An antonym is a word that has the opposite meaning of the word. The blade of grass was massive compared to the tiny ant. So massive is the opposite of tiny. So massive has to mean very large. Another place to look for clues, word parts. There is a clue in the part of the unknown word. Excuse me. I think you are overreacting to this problem. Overreacting. Okay, reacting too much. Examples. There is an example of the word nearby. A beverage, such as cola, water, or tea, will be served shortly. So we know a beverage is something that we drink. These are called context clues, and they're the clues in the sentence that will help you figure out the meaning of a word. When you come across the same word over and over and over and over, context can help you figure it out. If it's something you don't read too often, then you should probably look it up. Look it up anyway to see if you were right. All right, so different tips for building memory of what you read. We already talked about taking handwritten notes, using your hand to write things down on a piece of paper. Visualizing is something that people do. You can visualize a movie in your mind. You can visualize the frames in a film. When you read, a good way to anchor that is to imagine a scene in a movie and events as they occur. That can be very helpful in remembering what you read if it lends itself to that. Other people, and I've done this reading books, if you're reading something a little more complicated, this is very helpful. Draw a picture or a diagram. This could include, I know that when I read fiction, occasionally there's so many characters in the book I can't keep them straight. I'll write down the names on a piece of paper and their relation to each other, and maybe the mother has an apron on and the father's smoking a cigar. If you can draw a picture or make a diagram to help you visualize and remember what it is you've read, those are very helpful. And again, that's using one of the other senses. It's using the eyes. That will help you remember. Another good technique. We had talked about looking for the main idea by scanning the table of contents and the chapters and the headings. So one technique for reading long or complicated material, or any material, read it more than once. So the first day you may have a half-hour break between classes, and you'll sit down and you'll open up what it is you had to read. And you don't have a lot of time and you have a little difficulty focusing, so you just kind of skim it. See what it's about, what the main idea is, and what's included in the text. Close it, go back again the next day. Read it slowly, carefully. Your first reading may have been very quick and very superficial. Your second reading should be much more slow and much more focused. Do it when you have time. The advantage to reading it twice is when you sit down to read it the second time, you're already going to know what's in it. You already know what to expect, and you already know what you're going to read about. And that, believe it or not, is a huge bonus of reading it twice. It's going to help you understand it the second time you read it much better. So read it again the next day, very slowly and carefully. This is a tip.
Lucy, sorry to interrupt. Salomon raised his hand. I think there's a question.
Okay, let me see if I can. Let me see where it is. I don't. Did he type it? I don't see the question. Would he like to ask and turn on his mic?
Oh, yes, Yes, hello?
Yes, go ahead. Go ahead.
So, talking would be way easier for me with the um with the device
Can
I'm
you,
using.
yeah, speak up just a little bit. I'm having a little trouble hearing
Uh,
you.
is it better?
Yes, go ahead.
Okay. I usually read it carefully once and
Hmm.
then read it very fast, like the second time. Is
Oh,
does
okay.
that lower like the efficiency of the memory recall, or is it the same thing altogether?
I'm going to guess it's the same thing because you are reading it twice. I would say use whatever's easier for you and whatever's more helpful for you. Yeah. Do you find that you get more out of it the second time you read it?
Not really. The second time it's always like, let's say I've read it and then I understood it like a certain way. Now
Uh-huh.
when I read the second time, because I'm not sure, because I had like conceived thoughts about it. I don't know. Well, when I read it the second time, it's like I correct myself. It's like a
Very good.
kind of
Very good.
yeah, a review instead of me, oh, sorry, instead of me like how
I
do you say
understand.
it? Actually, yeah, yeah, understanding. So it's like I
Excellent.
understand it a certain way the first time, and then I review like my preconceived vision the second time.
That's perfect. That's also an excellent technique, either way, because when you read it the second time, you're actually checking, exactly like you said. You're checking your conceptions, your preconceptions. You're correcting yourself, changing anything you might have missed the first time. That's very valuable as well. I think either one works. Sure. That's a very good suggestion. Thank you. All right, this is a technique that's suggested. Not everybody would do this. Some people find that they learn more or they need a little extra help from a reading buddy. So this technique involves you get together with your buddy in a quiet place. You both read silently to yourself, maybe a paragraph, maybe a page. Then you summarize out loud in your own words what you've read. Verbalizing what you've read is very good for memory and very good for processing the information. You check your understanding with your buddy of what you read. You correct each other and help each other, ask each other questions. Like I said, this isn't for everybody, but this can be very helpful for people who have a problem with the language or who are just starting school or using, reading very difficult material. Just remember when you're in college and you're in life, you don't have to do everything by yourself. You don't have to do everything alone. So if it's helpful to work with somebody, by all means do it. Very important, the facts. The facts. This comes up, of course, in newspapers and magazines and nonfiction. So what are the facts that you're looking for that comprise the main ideas and what's important in what you read? You want to know who it's about, what it's about, when it occurred, where it occurred, sometimes why, and how. And this is a format generally followed by news media. Any articles in the news will always include all of these elements. So keep that in mind when you're reading. Like I said, what I discussed here is pertinent to reading from books. This is a link to digital text strategies. If you are a tech wizard and you would really like to learn some tips for reading digital text and building memory, this has some great tips. They're very long, they're complicated. I'm not a master, so I thought I should avoid it, but I'm offering this to you if you want to look at it. Will it be on the test? So the first and last question of every student, will it be on the test? So are you reading your assignments because you want to be prepared for the test? Yes. Do you memorize facts so that you can pass the test? Yes. But is that the real question? Will it be when you're reading? Will it be on the test? Your test is going to be your career, your job, and your profession. Your test will be every day. So what you read is going to be a foundation of what you do later on in life. So look at it that way. You're going to build on that foundation. You're going to acquire knowledge. Reading is a great way to acquire knowledge and facts. And do it for that reason. Do it for that reason because those are things that you'll use for the rest of your life in one way or another. So try not to be so short-sighted. Look at the long term. And that's what this is. Start with a foundation and build on it. Whenever we learn, we start with what we already know, and then we link what we learn to what we already have learned. And this is how we learn in all kinds of fields and in all kinds of areas of life. Your memory will be better if you can link new facts to old facts or new experiences to old experiences. Your memory will be more solid because you're building a foundation just like a building in your mind. The top story is based on the story floor just below it, and that floor is supported by the floor just below that one. Everything you learn is a progression that will be based on everything you learned before. And in the end, what reading does is it teaches us to think. So that's not one of the language skills. It's not listening or speaking. It's not writing. But learning to read will teach you how to think. And when you learn how to think, you'll be a better writer. It'll help you to write and it'll help you in everything. So reading is an excellent skill for the mind and for your future. And studies show that readers have better memories. Are there any more questions? Because that's the end of my presentation. This is a survey that the college would like everybody to fill out for feedback on the presentation. And let me know if there are any more questions.